All right, good evening, Wakefield Forest parents. I'm Mr. Gray, the Advanced Academics Resource Teacher, aka STEAM teacher. Miss Prindle is on the call as well. She will be the chat master and my emergency glass in case I need some help with some questions. So feel free to ask questions in the chat or use some of the tools on here by raising your hand. We'll try to help you through the presentation. We want to value your time, so we're gonna kind of cruise through this pretty quickly. But like I said, if there's anything we go through too fast, just slow me down and we'll go for it. But the purpose of this is the overview of the services that we provide in Fairfax County. So our session outcomes are to pretty much understand the philosophies with Fairfax County's academic programs and how we meet students' needs for and their advanced learning through a variety of services in our continuum. So you'll see, like I said, a wide variety of ways that advanced academics material is being accessed by your child or children. So we've got to start off first with our beliefs with Fairfax County Schools. Our number one belief is all students deserve an excellent education. Being in Fairfax County for 20 plus years, I can tell you with certainty this is something that I've seen by many teachers and administration, and it's a great belief to have. Students learn best when educators, parents, and students work together. We are all in this as a team. So the more involvement that we get with each other, the better it is for your child or children. High expectations lead to high performance. Like I said, over 20 years, I have seen this first, what's the word? I'm losing my, the word that goes with it.
And
Firsthand, yes, thank you. And then all students need need opportunities to use strengths and pursue interests. Sorry, my little talking thing. Let me move it on the side. Use their strengths and pursue interests. So we'll kind of dive into this. But before we do, we have to look at what Virginia Department of Education defines gifted or advanced academics is the term we use now, right? So gifted students means those students who demonstrate high levels of accomplishment or who show the potential for high levels of accomplishment when compared to others of the same age, experience, and environment. So really, high levels and potential are kind of two key words in this. With gifted regulations, which the state has, is that we are mandated to identify gifted students or advanced academic students, and we are mandated to provide instructional services to meet their needs. If you want to dive into the FCPS local plan for advanced academic services, I'm trying to stay away from the word gifted because we've kind of moved on from that. You can go on the FCPS site and the local plan is on there. So two goals, like we said, over the advanced academics programs is to develop talent and potential. And one of the big ways to develop talent is through differentiation. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So what does development look like in Fairfax County? It's creating opportunities through the use of the AAP curriculum and their strategies. Working with students to identify and explore their areas of interest, providing them choice and opportunities, and focusing on an underrepresented population, which we call the young scholars, and through a young scholars model. So going back to differentiation, what does differentiation for advanced learners mean in FCPS? It means in some instances going beyond grade level standards, being able to access the differentiated curriculum by providing different pacing, depth, complexity, and removing some scaffolds. It also trying to put students with similar peer groups together so that they can kind of grow together, and looking at some of the academic advising and complementary supports for success. And Young Scholars has some scaffolding to create the supports. So this side is the continuum of services, and it'll talk about how we challenge and engage all students from kindergarten to 12th grade by providing deeper learning and talent development. We build on their strengths and abilities through multiple entry points, and we meet the diverse needs through the different continuum of services. And like I said, we'll dive deeper into each of the levels. But the overall belief is that Fairfax County believes talent can be nurtured and developed in all students, and AAP services for a student may change over time. So this is the continuum, and we'll kind of dive into each piece or the program overview of the continuum. So Young Scholars model, this Young Scholar model follows students from kindergarten to 12. It's the one part of the continuum that will track them all the way through 12th grade, where some of the other levels end at certain grade levels. So the Young Scholars, they're pretty much, the belief is to, from an early age, find high academic potential from groups that are historically underrepresented through advanced academic programming. And it's really meant to eliminate barriers so that every student can have an opportunity to be successful, whether they're in elementary, middle, and high school. With that said, one of the advanced academics programs, twice exceptional students also have been found to have exceptional abilities, and that all advanced academic teachers are required to have classes to be able to, I'm drawing a blank here, sorry, I apologize, are prepared to work with twice exceptional students and to pull out their exceptional abilities. And there's no impact on whether a twice exceptional student would have a barrier to any of the advanced academic services and within the continuum. So we're obviously going to focus on the elementary service. We'll highlight a little bit of the middle and high, but really our focus is obviously on the elementary services. So in the elementary school services, we offer a level 1 access to rigor, which every student gets access to this, and we'll go into this a little deeper. And then there is some subject specific differentiation that goes on, and we call that like the level 2 program currently. There are part-time services that will start in grade 3 and up, and then there's full-time services level 4, which also start in grade 3 as well. So let's look at access to rigor in level 1. So this one, all students have opportunities to think critically, reason, and problem solving, right? So one of my missions is when I'm in the STEAM room, I try to incorporate critical and creative thinking strategies through the STEAM model. And I try to use advanced academic curriculum and concepts and content each quarter with the students, as well as Miss Dildine, who's also helping with STEAM this year, and she's supporting K1 and 4, and obviously I'm doing the other 4 grade levels. So these are some of the strategies that we try to embed into our STEAM lessons. Visualization, obviously, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So that's a powerful one. Encapsulation, being able to concisely give information and find the main point or main view in some piece of documentation or piece of work. Obviously, question is a big one. Point of view is a great one that students really can expand quickly on. There's a lot of students think from their point of view, but if you can put them in other perspectives, that's really helpful. So the AAP office has a lot of curriculum that kind of exposes students to those 9 thinking strategies. and they take it a step further by kind of using conceptual knowledge, using the concept to get to the learning that the student needs, where maybe in some non-AAP material, it's more skill-based. This is concept, and then use the skills to get to the concept. So these are just a few of the things that are offered in the AAP. You notice there, all the 4 subjects are in this slide. And again, all students get access to this tier 1 instruction. So there's no referrals or screening process needed for this. Now we move on to level 2, which is where there may be a need for a child or a group of children to receive some additional services or some differentiation in a particular subject or subjects. In our school, this is pretty much happens with the classroom teacher. You may not even know whether they're formally identified as a level 2 or not. We have a lot of excellent teachers in our school, and just by necessity, they will automatically scaffold your child and differentiate them to meet their needs. But there are formal ways. There is a form you could formally request for level 2. But what it basically does is it provides different assignments and resources and helps group students. But again, like I said, in our school, level 2 is happening within the classroom. And then I just support the teachers if they need to provide any resources or kind of stuck on how to help them. And like I said, you can refer, there is a form for referring this, but we every spring, right after testing, we meet each grade level and we look at each child's performance from that past year. And then we look at where their needs are going to be for the fall. And we identify students for, excuse me, level 2, 3, which we can do locally, and level 4 is something that the county does. But there is, if you don't want to wait till the spring or your child hasn't been formally identified, there is a form on the FCPS website that you could fill out, and then we would take a closer look at your child. So moving on to part-time services, which, like we said, starts in grade 3. This is when a student is kind of has multiple subjects they need enrichment in or differentiation. And so this service is provided directly by me. We do it by grade level. So I currently have a grade 3, 4, 5, and 6 pull-out classes, which we meet weekly for 30 minutes. And what we do is we expose those students to material that's being utilized in the level 4 classrooms. Obviously not as great as that with only 30 minutes a week. And then we're also incorporating those level 1 strategies and thinking skills in as well. And we do it, and there's no, so the one question I normally get is level 3, is it math-based, science-based? And so we kind of dive around and we look at the curriculum as they're going through in their classrooms. And I look at, like, how can I expose them to the different subjects and keep it incorporated in their classroom. For example, grade 3 was working on math up until this week, and now they're starting on a science unit. So they've already gone from math to science, and 6th grade has gone from math to history. So in this situation, you can, just like the level 2, there's a referral form on the website, or you can reach out to me and I can get that in your hands. I haven't really gone over it, but you will be notified in 30 business days regarding your eligibility or ineligibility for level 3. And like I said, with at the end of the year, we screen all students regardless whether any forms have come in, referral forms have come in for level 2 and 3. So this is not necessary. This is more for parents who may have just moved into the area and we're not really aware of, like, their children's performance and they may want to accelerate the process. So now we're on to full-time services, right? This is when a student or students need a full-time academic program, which the differentiations happening in all the four content areas, and their classroom teacher. So it's just a regular classroom teacher, but the their whole day is filled with advanced academic content. And um, students eligible for the full-time AAP services receive, like I said, the four subjects, and the curriculum is differentiated pretty much through acceleration is a big piece. They also go into depth and complexity of content. So again, like I said earlier, they are really focused on concept-based learning um, rather than skill-based. In this case, there is a very formal process. So if you are new to Fairfax County, then you can utilize the fall screening, which needs to be done by October 15th, which is just coming up. You would submit a referral form, and then there's some optional materials that come with the screening process. But I usually suggest that don't make that optional. We make that mandated because the more information you can give to the committee, the the more uh, the more information the committee has, and then they can make a more informed decision. But if a student has been in Fairfax County years prior, then they have to wait till the spring screening, and that's December 15th. And then again, it's the same process as the fall. Their referral form is what kicks off the process, and the optional material will come in. If somebody is on this call is interested in the spring screening, we will have another call or another presentation where we will dive into specifically level 4 screening and the whole process, right? And then the county will notify you of all the testing and the identification timeline, all like when the announcement will be made, and if you weren't identified, how you can appeal and all the information. But again, that would be in a later presentation. So what part does ability testing play in the screening process? So best practices is matching students to AP services, including looking at the whole student. So we're looking at a holistic approach. This is just testing is just one piece of several data points. And we look at report cards, we look at commentary from teachers, we look at work samples, and any one piece of data points is not heavily favored over the other. It's so we're looking at a holistic approach, which is kind of changed in the last decade or so. So the two tests that students get through the elementary school is the Naglieri, which usually happens in grade 1. It's a nonverbal test, and they will usually take it in their classrooms, and the Cogat test in grade 2. And the Cogat test was supposed to happen this week, but there was, I guess, some testing problems with it. So you'll be notified of the changes of when they're going to retake that. Now, there's only one ability test that's required to be on file for a student. So one of the common questions we get is a second grader may come into the county and they take the COGAT and they ask, can we take the Naglieri? And then the typical answer is no, because there's only one required test on there. So in some instances, if the Naglieri is a better test in regards to, because it's nonverbal and maybe there's a language issue, then there may be an exception to that. But typically we only need one national test on file. You are, as a parent, allowed to request one-time retest. We typically don't ask you to retest the year after that. You don't show much growth. So typical retest would be like you take COGAT in grade 2, and then maybe in grade 4 you take the test. And again, fourth grade. The one-time retest was meant for anomalies. If maybe a student wasn't feeling well that day, or they were off, or maybe something happened in the family. But in any case, there is one retest option that you get to utilize through your elementary school years. Now, this is not to say that you can't take tests on your own. That George Mason offers testing, but for Fairfax County, this is their policy. So we've cruised through this pretty quickly. So if you need any help about more information about this process, like I said, if you're really interested in the level 4 process, we will have another presentation that really dives into this in depth. But if you want to kind of get a head start and just learn how you might be able to put the right information together, let me know. You can reach me on my email. Miss Williams is the school testing coordinator. You could reach out to her. If you need to speak to the central office, their phone numbers there as well as their email. But generally, we ask you kind of go through us first, unless it's a really big question that we can't answer, then we would go to AAP office. And that's typically my protocol. Like if I don't know an answer, I'll say, let me find out for you. And usually my next call is to the central office. There is Frost is our secondary middle school, and Woodson's our high school. Kind of early in the process, we don't really kind of dive too much into talking with them, but the one exciting thing is Frost and most of the middle schools all the middle schools now have an AART, which is one of the things that the board requested in the last year. So that's an exciting thing. And I've already been to 2 meetings where I've met with the Frost Middle School so that we can kind of coordinate as they move up. And obviously there's some other people there if you need to reach out to student services, want to learn about the school or their counselors, you can reach out to them. And you can get most of the information by going through our Fairfax County website. If you want to learn about a lot of the information that we just told you tonight, it kind of shows you the steps here. And there's the website. And I believe we have reached the presentation. So there wasn't a slide here to ask for questions, but we are more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Oops, sorry. And I don't know, Ms. Prindle, if you've been answering questions while I've been presenting here.
Yes, sir. I can address Ms. Miller's question. I would say that the local level 4 classes are kind of back to pre-pandemic points. I think every year, each group of kiddos, whether it's at the central at Kittebury Woods or here, there are kids at a variety of levels in all of those classes. So, but we're seeing that kids are able to engage in that high level rigor. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's great. I'm just always curious because you hear the national stuff, and I'm just wondering what you're seeing in our school.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. This year feels very different from last year, so I'm seeing really good things from our kiddos. So that's good. And I saw question about twice exceptional learners. So there is a whole actually brochure on twice exceptionalities. I can try to find that for you that that's available for Fairfax County families and staff. And so when you're looking at kind of applying for any of those supports, there are places where you can notate, if your kiddo has a disability that may impact the quality of the products that they're producing. I think we often see with twice exceptional students a difference between that kind of verbal ability or, and then the written output. So there are places to note that. And certainly when we look at, I think Mr. Gray mentioned the young scholars. One of the underrepresented groups that we would be looking at are students with disabilities. So we do have students with disabilities that are accessing services levels 2, through 4, and also that are accessing advanced math. So it really depends on kind of what the data shows, and that's kind of how we work through those situations. How many AAP level 4 classrooms are there? At Wakefield Forest, we have one full-time classroom in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. So our plan will be to transfer this video into a YouTube video and then have it posted on the website. New to FCPS, how do we know whether to apply for level 3 or 4? So what I would tell you is that the level 4 or full-time programming starts in grade 3. If you are interested in services for your kiddo, I would, and you're wondering about that, I got a couple of direct messages about the timeline for COGATs. I always advise families, if you really are seeing real strengths with your kiddo, I would encourage you to fill out the application so you don't miss the deadline, because the testing often arrives after the deadline. We do screen all students for level 3 in the spring. So once we get the results of the level 4, if a student was not found eligible for level 4, we would screen them for level 3. So level 3, I think, is Mr. Gray was sharing, is tends to be, 30 to an hour time with him per week versus the full-time engagement with the advanced academics curriculum.
Okay, I see one of the questions here. I know you're going to go over this in more depth for the level 4 curriculum, but are there things we can be collecting at home for the application process that may help? One of the things we use is the committee is looking for. They're looking for examples of creativity. They're looking for examples of critical thinking. They're looking for examples of application of information. So things that are typically not good samples. I know that's kind of opposite what I just told you, was like multiplication table. If you just wanted to submit a full page sheet of multiplications of the 8s, right? And maybe they got it perfect on that. That really doesn't show the application of multiplication. Now, if there was some way that they applied the multiplication skills to do some type of budgeting or something like that, where it shows them using the information, that's typically the type of information that's a lot more helpful. Because like I alluded to in the presentation, that the level 4 environment is very conceptual based. So they're really exploring the hows and whys of information, and that's one of the things that you want, samples that are going to support that a child can understand the how and why, right? So just being able to do something like a memory base is not really showing like an application of information. So hopefully that's helpful. Do you screen for level 4 every year? We have teachers make recommendations if they feel really strongly that a student should be in level 4. Yes, but typically parents are sending in level 4 forms, and trying to figure out how to really answer this, Miss Prindle.
So sorry, I answered that one in the chat. Is that?
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
No, level 4 screening does occur
Oh,
every
okay.
year. But it is only based on families who refer or for teachers who refer after the like third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. And so we do have families who go through the application process in second grade, and maybe at that time it doesn't stand out, but at a later date it will. Mrs. Entz also asked a question about the guest spots. So because we are a local level 4, if we have available spaces in our level 4 classroom, we do offer guest spots for kiddos. So for example, if we had 20 students who were level 4 eligible, but we really needed to have classes of 25, we could potentially have 5 guest spaces. Students are screened through a variety of data points and selected for that class. But it is a 1-year designation, so it's not, it can be tough for a kiddo that gets in there. And I've talked to a lot of families because, each year what happens is more families will, apply and kiddos will get into the level 4. And so it creates less and less space for guests. And so that is kind of something to consider, if you are looking at a guest spot for your kiddo. And oftentimes those families, you'll get a sense from the teacher whether that's been, a good fit or, a bit too much of a stretch. But many of those families I know will apply, and then over time, some of them will become eligible. And so it does shift the number of spaces I have available to offer. And some years I don't have any spaces. Yes, if a kiddo is offered a guest space, I send a very specific letter that kind of outlines that and does say that it's a 1-year only thing. And it happens over the summer after I know kind of what my final numbers are for classes. So I wouldn't do it without notifying families and making sure they were on board. Any other questions? So as Mr. Gray shared, we'll do another session sooner rather than later. It's coming up that will kind of address the process for the level 4 application. And, again, you can be collecting pieces of information. What I'll say is the process now is that, when they are screening them for level 4 or full-time placement, that's done at a central office. And at the central office, they are comparing Wakefield Forest students to Wakefield Forest students. And so, we overall, our school is a high performing school with a lot of really amazing and talented young girls and boys. And so I think if you're thinking about what things are happening outside of school, it would be something that maybe doesn't necessarily get highlighted in the day-to-day work. So if your kiddo's writing some really cool poetry or a story, Mr. Gray does a really fabulous job of looking at those samples and trying to give families guidance. If the samples that we have at school are maybe stronger than what you are providing from home. So we will work through that process with you and share a little bit more information at our next session as well. Who leads the application process for guest children, parent-led, teacher-led? So they're the guest process. So in every spring, after we figure out who is level 4, we screen all of the kiddos for level 3. The level 3 kiddos are who we're looking at for guest spots. So that is a process that involves Mr. Gray, its teacher, it's me. Oftentimes parents have, indicated or let me know that they're, that they want to make sure that their kiddo is looked at for that opportunity. But ultimately it comes down to the data. When I have to meet with families, that's kind of what I'm looking at, so that I can support my decisions. So I'm looking at that component, but I have one of my data columns is parent request. So I definitely have that weighed in as well. Level 4, if you want your kiddo screened for level 4, you should submit the level 4 request as a parent.
And we typically, if you're in that AP classroom as a guest, we encourage you to do that level 4 process while they're still in that AAP classroom, because the decision well will the result will take place whether you're formally in it the following year or that fall. To be eligible for level 4, is that screened by parent request only, or does that happen automatically? So it's a combination. If teachers believe that a student should be level 4, they will put in a referral form on your behalf. They'll usually contact you before. But if a teacher doesn't do that, you as a parent can fill out the documentation and start the process.
Well, we very much appreciate so many of you turning out tonight. And if you have any further questions, I know I put Mr. Gray's information in the chat at one point, his email. He's a great point of contact, and you can always reach out to me as well if you have any questions. And then again, we'll hold another information session here in just a few weeks. So we hope you have a great night. Thank you so
everybody.
much.